Welcome back to Beyond Words, where every act of kindness has the power to change lives, including our own. Where are you watching from today? Let us know in the comments below. We'd love to hear your stories. A broke young carpenter risks everything to help an injured stranger on a deserted road late at night. Little does he know that one selfless decision will shatter his reality forever. Arjun lived life on the edge. Not the glamorous kind, but the kind where every penny counted and every decision carried weight. At 25, he was already carrying burdens heavier than most men twice his age. His days began before sunrise, hammering nails and sawing wood in sweltering heat, all to keep food on the table for his ailing mother. His workshop was nothing more than a ramshackle shed tucked away in the corner of their modest backyard. Tools were worn, surfaces scratched, and the air thick with sawdust. Yet, it was here that Arjun poured his heart into crafting furniture, pieces he sold at barely enough profit to cover rent and medical bills. Life hadn't been kind to him. After his father passed away unexpectedly, leaving behind mounting debts, Arjun dropped out of school to take over the family responsibilities. Dreams of becoming an architect faded into the background as survival became his sole focus. One particularly brutal evening, after finishing a custom bookshelf for a client who promised payment next week, Arjun trudged home under the dim glow of streetlights. His stomach growled. He hadn't eaten since breakfast, but he pushed the thought aside. There was no money left for dinner anyway. As he walked along the deserted highway leading out of town, something caught his eye. Headlights reflecting off twisted metal near the edge of the forest. Against his better judgment, curiosity, and perhaps instinct, pulled him toward the wreckage. What he found made his blood run cold. A luxury car had veered off the road, its front end crumpled against a tree. Steam hissed from the engine, and shards of glass glittered in the moonlight. Inside, slumped over the steering wheel, was a woman, her face pale, her breathing shallow. For a moment Arjun hesitated. He could walk away. No one would blame him. After all, what could a broke carpenter do? But then he remembered his mother's words. Do what's right, even when it's hard. Taking a deep breath, Arjun approached the car. The door creaked open with effort, and he gently pulled the woman out. She stirred faintly, murmuring something incoherent. Blood trickled from a gash on her forehead, and her designer clothes were torn, but she was alive. I've got you, Arjun whispered, hoisting her onto his shoulder. Ignoring the ache in his muscles, he carried her to safety, laying her down on the grass a safe distance from the wreckage. As he tended to her injuries using scraps of fabric from his bag, she opened her eyes briefly. They're coming, she murmured cryptically before slipping back into unconsciousness. Arjun frowned, glancing around nervously. Who was coming? And why did the stranger seem so afraid? Little did he know, his simple act of kindness had just placed him squarely in the middle of a dangerous game. One that would test not only his courage but also redefine his future. The forest was eerily silent except for the occasional rustle of leaves and the distant hum of crickets. Arjun knelt beside the injured woman, his heart pounding as he tried to make sense of her cryptic warning. They're coming? Who were they? And why would someone target a woman driving such an expensive car? Questions raced through Arjun's mind, but there was no time to dwell on them. He needed to act quickly. Using his phone's dim flashlight, he checked her injuries again. The gash on her forehead wasn't deep, but she seemed disoriented and weak, likely from shock or internal injuries he couldn't see. He rummaged through her car, finding a first aid kit in the trunk, and cleaned her wound as best he could. Suddenly, headlights pierced through the trees in the distance. A vehicle was approaching fast, its engine growling menacingly. Panic surged through Arjun. Was this who the woman had been afraid of? Without hesitation, he scooped her up once more, ignoring the strain on his arms, and carried her deeper into the woods. They hid behind a cluster of bushes just as the second vehicle screeched to a halt near the wreckage. Two men emerged, their faces obscured by caps and scarves. What happened here? One of them muttered, kicking at the debris. Looks like she crashed, the other replied, his voice cold. But where is she? Arjun held his breath, clutching the woman protectively. Her breathing was shallow, her body limp against his chest. If they found them now, there was no telling what these men would do. After what felt like hours, but was likely only minutes, the men cursed under their breath and drove off, leaving the scene deserted once more. Arjun waited a few moments longer before emerging from the bushes. His legs trembled with exhaustion, but adrenaline kept him moving. Carrying the woman back to the road, he flagged down a passing truck driver who agreed to take them to the nearest hospital. As they sped away, Arjun glanced at the unconscious woman, wondering who she really was and how deeply entangled her life was with danger. Little did he know, saving her that night would be the beginning of something extraordinary. The hospital buzzed with activity as doctors rushed the mysterious woman into emergency care. Arjun sat in the waiting area, his clothes still stained with dirt and blood, his mind racing. Who was she? Why had those men been chasing her? And most importantly, was she going to be okay? Hours later, a nurse approached him. "She's stable now," she said gently. "You can see her if you'd like." Arjun hesitated but followed the nurse to a private room. The woman lay in the bed, her face pale but peaceful, hooked up to an IV drip. As he stepped closer, her eyes fluttered open, meeting his gaze. "You saved me," she whispered, her voice hoarse but filled with gratitude. "I just did what anyone would have done," Arjun replied modestly, though his cheeks flushed at her acknowledgement. She managed a faint smile. Not everyone would risk their life for a stranger. "Thank you." They talked briefly, and she introduced herself as Mira, a name that sounded oddly familiar to Arjun, though he couldn't place why. She explained that the accident wasn't random. Rival executives in her company were trying to sabotage her business empire. "Your company?" Arjun asked, confused. Mira nodded. "I'm the CEO of Crest Innovations." Arjun's jaw dropped. Crest was one of the largest tech companies in the country, known for its cutting-edge advancements and multi-million-dollar deals. He had seen their ads everywhere, from billboards to social media, but never imagined meeting someone from the top tier of such a massive organization. Mira noticed his shock and chuckled weakly. "Hard to believe, right? But I owe you my life. If it weren't for you," her voice trailed off, her expression darkening as she recalled the danger she was still in. Before Arjun could respond, a team of security personnel entered the room, surrounding Mira protectively. They briefed her on updates regarding the men who had chased her, assuring her they were handling the situation. When they left, Mira turned back to Arjun, her tone serious yet warm. "I want to repay you for everything. Not just tonight, but for reminding me that there's still goodness in the world." Arjun shook his head firmly. "I don't need repayment. I just did what was right." But Mira wasn't about to let his kindness go unnoticed. Unbeknownst to him, she already had plans brewing. Plans that would change his life forever. Over the next few days, Mira recovered steadily, but her mind was far from idle. She couldn't stop thinking about Arjun, the broke young carpenter who had risked everything to save her, asking for nothing in return. In a world where people often acted out of self-interest, his selflessness stood out like a beacon of hope. Determined to repay him, Mira sent her team to discreetly gather information about Arjun's life. What they uncovered moved her even more. A struggling craftsman working tirelessly to care for his sick mother, living paycheck to paycheck, and harboring dreams he'd long since buried under the weight of responsibility. When Arjun received a call inviting him to meet with Mira at her penthouse office, he assumed it was simply to thank him again. Dressed in his cleanest shirt and worn jeans, he arrived at Crest headquarters, a towering glass building that seemed otherworldly compared to the modest structures he was used to. Mira greeted him warmly, her demeanor both professional and genuine. "Arjun, I can't express how grateful I am for what you did," she began. "But gratitude isn't enough. I want to help you. Truly help you." Arjun shifted uncomfortably. "I don't need charity, ma'am. I just did what anyone should have done." "It's not charity," Mira insisted. "It's an investment. In your talent, your potential, and your heart. Tell me, what's your dream?" Arjun hesitated, caught off guard by the question. For so long, he'd suppressed his aspirations, believing they were impossible. Finally, he admitted, "I've always wanted to build affordable homes for families who can't afford them. Safe, sturdy places where kids can grow up without worrying about roofs caving in or walls crumbling." Mira's eyes lit up. "That's incredible. And it's going to happen with my support." True to her word, Mira funded Arjun's project, providing resources, connections, and mentorship to bring his vision to life. Within months, Arjun transformed from a struggling carpenter into a rising star in sustainable housing development. His designs not only improved lives but also earned recognition nationwide. Through their collaboration, a deep bond formed between them, not romantic, but rooted in mutual respect and shared purpose. Together, they proved that kindness inspires greatness, and that doing the right thing has the power to change countless lives, including your own. Arjun's dream became a reality faster than he ever imagined. The affordable housing project, aptly named Shelter of Hope, broke ground within 6 months and transformed entire communities. Families who had once lived in crumbling shacks now had safe, dignified homes, thanks to Arjun's vision and Mira's generosity. But the ripple effects didn't stop there. Inspired by Arjun's story, Mira launched a foundation dedicated to supporting grassroots innovators, ordinary people with extraordinary ideas for social change. She often credited Arjun as her inspiration, saying, "Sometimes, it takes someone else's courage to remind us of our own." For Arjun, life took on new meaning. His mother's health improved thanks to better living conditions, and his confidence soared as he realized his potential wasn't limited to carpentry. He traveled across the country, sharing his journey at conferences and workshops, encouraging others to pursue their dreams despite adversity. One evening, as Arjun stood overlooking a newly completed neighborhood, children playing and laughter filling the air, he reflected on how far he'd come. That fateful night on the deserted road had seemed like just another hardship, but it turned out to be the beginning of something miraculous. So, Beyond Words reminds us, acts of kindness create ripples of positivity, reminding us that even in our darkest moments, light can break through. Thank you for watching. If this story inspired you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Beyond Words for more tales that celebrate the extraordinary in the ordinary. Until next time, remember, your actions matter. Keep spreading kindness, it always comes back around.